Imagine the absolute worst-case scenario humanity could face. An accidental collision in the freezing waters of the North Atlantic, a split-second miscalculation by a high-strung submarine captain, and instantly, nuclear warheads are primed in their silos. On the 7th of January 2026, the world stood not just on the brink of an energy crisis, but we actually touched the red button of World War III. At the center of this geopolitical maelstrom was the Marinara, a rusted, aging oil tanker, its hull scarred by time and sea salt. To the naked eye, it looked like any other of the thousands of cargo vessels traversing the globe. But hidden beneath a fresh coat of paint, applied in haste to mask its identity, lay a tangled web of national interests, the most sophisticated sanctions evasion plots in history, and a direct armed confrontation between the world's two largest military blocs. Deep beneath the violent swells of the Atlantic, where crushing pressure reigns and sunlight never reaches, a steel monster of the Russian Navy lay waiting in the darkness. It was a Yasen-M class nuclear-powered attack submarine, one of the most formidable, silent, and lethal machines ever devised by man. Its mission was simple, yet carried the risk of erasing civilization. Protect the Marinara and its illicit oil cargo at all costs. Moscow had wagered its entire reputation and might on this gamble. The Kremlin issued an unmistakable message. Any act of interference, interception, or fire directed at the Marinara would be viewed by Russia as an act of direct aggression against its sovereign territory. The world held its breath as every nautical mile ticked by. On one side stood the U, Coast Guard and NATO allies, determined to enforce international law. On the other, a nuclear deterrent ready to strike back. But the Americans had prepared an answer that the Russian generals never expected. They didn't choose immediate brutal gunfire. Instead, they chose to peel back the enemy using a suffocating net of surveillance, stretching from the upper atmosphere to the very bottom of the ocean. This historic pursuit did not actually begin today. It ignited 4,000 miles away, in the warm but crime-ridden waters of the Caribbean. The original protagonist was a vessel named the Bella One, a 15-year-old ghost ship with no insurance and no clear registration. It was a vital link in the Shadow Fleet, a network established to help sanctioned nations like Venezuela and Russia maintain their cash flow from oil. In mid-December 2025, the Bella One attempted to slip through the U. Surveillance ring to load cargo at the port of Puerto La Cruz. When intercepted by the cutter, Monroe, the pride of the U, Coast Guard and signaled to stop, the captain of the Bella One committed a desperate act. He ordered the total shutdown of the AIS automatic identification system, erasing the ship from civilian maritime maps, and charged headlong into the open Atlantic amidst a storm. For the next 2 weeks, a massive manhunt ensued. NRO, military satellites, and long-range reconnaissance aircraft had to scan every square meter of water to find a steel ghost in the vast ocean. When the ship reappeared near the strategic gap between Iceland and the United Kingdom, it had completely transformed. The name Marinara was hurriedly painted on the hull, and most importantly, the flag of the Russian Federation was flying defiantly. Moscow immediately announced that the Marinara had been added to the National Ship Registry, making it a state asset. This was an incredibly cunning geopolitical checkmate move. Russia wanted to force the U into a corner. If they let the ship pass, the sanctions became a joke. If they seized it, it provided Russia a pretext for war. The Monroe, under the command of the most seasoned officers, tracked the Marinara relentlessly, amidst waves as high as 3-story buildings and winds that shrieked like tearing metal. The American crew knew they were walking a tightrope between two mountain peaks. Tensions reached a breaking point when signals intelligence confirmed the arrival of the Yasen-M nuclear submarine along with a flotilla of Russian warships, creating a steel ring of protection around the Marinara. Moscow was playing the game of anti-access area denial, a 2AD. They believed the presence of a nuclear submarine would cause the U Coast Guard, which lacks heavy anti-submarine weaponry, to back down. They were wrong. The U British and European alliance did not use raw muscle to break the siege. They used artificial intelligence and multi-domain warfare technology. The information overpower strategy began. From air bases in Iceland and Scotland, P-8 Poseidons, the world's #1 submarine hunters, took flight. Coordinating with them were MH-60 Seahawk helicopters. They began laying a dead zone by dropping hundreds of sonobuoys around the area. Each of these sonobuoys is a technical marvel. Upon hitting the water, they deploy a hydrophone system so sensitive it can hear the cavitation of submarine propellers from miles away. The acoustic data is encrypted and beamed back to a supercomputer command center. In an instant, the pitch-black ocean is digitized. The position, depth, speed, and even the specific acoustic signature of the Russian sub appear clearly on the command screens. The U didn't need to fire a single torpedo. They simply showed the Russians that your efforts to hide have failed. Simultaneously, RAF rivet joint aircraft emitted constant electromagnetic interference, severing the communication link between the submarine and the high command in Moscow. The Russian fleet was now like a blinded and deafened giant in the middle of a battlefield. At exactly 05:00 a.m. on the 7th of January 2026, Operation Trap Snapped was officially launched, as the P-8 Poseidon sent a final warning signal that the Russian sub was locked in the sights of Mk-54 torpedoes. The resistance from beneath the waves suddenly went silent. They knew they had lost the information war. Seizing the moment, the Monroe accelerated to close in on the Marinara. Due to the violent sea conditions, using boarding crafts was a suicide mission. Command decided on a vertical assault. 2 Seahawk helicopters hovered precariously over the deck of the Marinara. Amidst the deafening roar of engines and punishing rotor wash, SEAL teams and Coast Guard specialists performed fast rope maneuvers, descending from a height of 20 meters. In just 8 minutes and 45 seconds, key positions, including the bridge, engine room, and cargo holds, were secured. The Russian flag was lowered, and the stars and stripes flew once more from the mast. The Marinara had been conquered without a single shot fired. To understand why the Americans could pull off such a high-risk operation with such absolute confidence, we must dive deep into the anatomy of these guardian gods of the sky. First is the MH-60 Seahawk, a true beast of the Navy. It is far more than just a transport. The Seahawk is a perfect blend of firepower, sensor systems, and endurance. It features a dipping sonar system that can be lowered deep into the water to detect submarines, while the helicopter remains airborne. In terms of firepower, the Seahawk carries AGM-114 Hellfire missiles, and most importantly, the Gauss-16 heavy minigun with a firing rate of thousands of rounds per minute. The Gauss-16 isn't just a weapon. It is a wall of fire that prevents any approach from enemy suicide speedboats. With its foldable rotor structure, the Seahawk can launch from the tightest decks of a cutter, turning a standard law enforcement ship into a long-range strike fortress. But the true star of modern operations is the MQ-9 Reaper, the ghost of the sky. Operating silently at 50,000 feet, the Reaper stays out of sight of the naked eye and most civilian radars. Its ability to loiter for 24 consecutive hours makes it the most patient predator. Its MTSB multispectral sensor suite can read a license plate from the sky or, in this case, track every movement of the crew on deck in the dead of night. The Reaper is the brain that guides precision strikes. Combined with the Hellfire missile, it creates a lethal partnership. Let's analyze the mechanics of a Hellfire kill from a drone. When a high-speed boat from the Tren de Aragua criminal organization, a partner of Venezuela, is hurtling at 110 kilometers per hour across the sea, hitting it with conventional cannons is nearly impossible due to the erratic tossing of the waves. But the Hellfire is different. It doesn't fly in a stupid straight line. After leaving the rail, the missile receives guidance signals from a laser beam painted by the Reaper drone. The onboard computer performs thousands of calculations per second to adjust the control fins, anticipating the target's evasive turns. The Hellfire screams down at Mach 1.3 faster than the speed of sound. The target hears nothing until a high explosive charge punches through the hull. The combination of terrifying speed and millimeter-level precision makes the Hellfire the nightmare of every fast craft. The operation on the 7th of January 2026 was not just a ship seizure. It was a profound lesson in high-tech warfare. The U and NATO demonstrated a new doctrine: cognitive dominance. When you know everything about your opponent, when you can see through seawater and clouds, you have won the battle before the first shot is even fired. Neutralizing a Russian nuclear submarine without destroying it is a pinnacle of military diplomacy, saving humanity from a nuclear catastrophe while asserting dominance over the oceans. However, is this the end of the shadow fleets? The answer is no. The war in the shadows of sanctions continues silently every day. America's rivals will learn. They will develop new jamming technologies and quieter unmanned submarines. But the Marinara incident has sent a clear message to the world. The ocean is no longer a hiding place for those who defy international order. Under the watch of divine eyes from space and acute ears from the deep sea, the truth will always be exposed. If you are a military enthusiast and want to dive deeper into the weapon technologies changing the world, hit like and subscribe right now. We will continue to bring you the most in-depth documentaries and never-before-revealed analyses of the secret operations of global superpowers. Thank you for joining us on today's journey into military might.